Around 1 full year ago, I made a video talking about the Hour of Joy from Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, a truly remarkable moment in the game series that shook me to my core when it first happened. I talked about how big of a moment this was for Poppy Playtime as a whole, as it's usually associated with Minecraft animations and YouTube Kids, as it's infested its way into our culture somehow. The genius of the sequence was something I could never have predicted, and turns out no one actually cared at the time. So, to my surprise, people actually wanted a video on Doey instead of Dogman, which is understandable, but Invincible? Seriously? Although, to be honest, I don't want to sound cruel or anything. Enchanted was never cruel. I'll give the people what they want and talk about living, breathing Play-Doh. Now, I have played through the entirety of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, and I highly recommend understanding the story and characters of this chapter to further understand some of my critiques I will bring up in regards to Mr. Kinetic Sand over here, because there will be spoilers here. I'm going to try my best not to relate the actual gameplay with the story of Doey the Doughman, because not only is that not what this video is about, but I think it's more interesting if we talk about how Poppy Playtime teaches us how to succeed and fail at a twist villain. Now, before I cry myself to sleep and think about my life choices, as I am literally scraping the bottom of the barrel right now, if you do actually like this video, please let me know by giving a like and a subscribe, because I might be more willing to make more stuff in like the future, blah 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 blah. I might be more willing to make more stuff like this in the future if we gain that amount of support, so thank you. Alright, enough slander. Now, how does a twist villain succeed and fail at the same time? They're very contradictory terms, and it doesn't make sense how that's possible, but trust me, we're going to be diving into that now. To start off, we've had 3 other chapters in Poppy Playtime, and all of these chapters have a pattern to them. The covers of each of them have the most crucial character you'll be meeting in that chapter, and 3 out of 3 have been the main villain. So assuming Chapter 4, before even opening up the game, follows the same pattern, any person with a brain can predict that Doey is going to be the final boss fight you can go through in this chapter. So all in all, that gets a fail. They could have easily switched it from Doey to Yarnaby or even the Doctor to force the idea that they are going to be the main villain, but they spoil the surprise before even starting the chapter. Now, let's actually look at the game now. So, we have an opening introduction to this chapter as they do, but I feel that I should just bring this up later when I have more stuff to talk about who is actually inside of Doey. Doey isn't introduced till a little bit later into the chapter with a friendly side to him where he is truly not trying to harm you. But it's really intriguing how the first thing that happens is watching Doey eat the Pianosaurus, which should have been a really big turnoff if he's willing to just devour an entire other being right in front of you and then start sweet-talking you. I can imagine their vision with the scene was to introduce Doey as an antagonist before backing away from that immediately as he comes off as more friendly. And he truly is one of the most friendly characters in all of Poppy Playtime. But there still is a direct contrast of him murdering another creature right in front of you. It's a nice, subtle introduction with a good contrast that doesn't make you think anything else besides, well, I guess he was trying to eat, or I guess he saved us, without the player realizing the implications of him showing absolutely no mercy to the Pianosaurus. The next really big character moment was when Doey full-on talks about how he doesn't think Poppy's plan is good because of the lives they could be sacrificing. This paints Doey as the voice of reason for this chapter, as he understands the consequences of doing something like blowing up a piece of the factory. Sadly, we learn later that Doey was right about consequences, but didn't know how personal it would be, as the safe haven is blown up right in front of you and him. Up to this point, the funny thing is that we only have one failure of the character, and that is having him be the obvious twist villain based on the character banner of the game. But now we need to backtrack and understand the opening cinematic of the game. During a trip to Playtime Co., a kid named Jack accidentally falls into a piece of machinery that is creating a Play-Doh-like substance where the kid is mangled and drowned in it. This is symbolized through Doey's character design, as you can see an arm reaching across his body in yellow, orange, and red. But wait, no human has 3 hands, so what's the deal with this? Well, it turns out 2 other kids were killed, with one of them being another kid named Matthew, who is responsible, and Kevin, who is a troublemaker in the orphanage. So all in all, it is confirmed that Doey has 3 kids inside of him. Demonetized? Doey has 3 kids possessing him, meaning that each of these hands on his design actually refers to one of the kids while still being put together in one being. This makes sense due to how Doey does talk to himself quite a few times throughout this chapter. This character development is genius, as it actually takes an interesting idea and ties it together equally with how the character acts. It's sad and it's a bit horrific, which is exactly what this chapter was trying to accomplish until everything came crashing down right then and there. After he crashes out, I guess, he gets crushed and then turns into a big monster. I mean, dude, Mob Games, you are becoming so predictable with how you have to end the chapter with a runaway from the big monster. You have a character that can actually have emotion, but for some reason you decide that he has to become a twist villain now, because how else will people feel the same thing they did when Huggy Wuggy was chasing them during the first chapter, unless you just do it all over again. It's pretty blatant that this is what they were building up to, but Doey did not have to just become a monster randomly and start chasing us. It literally doesn't make sense that one of the 3 spirits are fighting us while the 2 others are trying to stop that one. Like, how does that even work unless you read through the letters upon notes left in the game for secrecy and watched the still image on the VHS tape for 4 minutes straight to understand one more thing you didn't know before? Everything about Monster Doey is lazy. They didn't take into consideration how useful a character like Doey could be to make the next game more tied together and emotional. So, you know, when we inevitably reach the prototype in the next chapter, we have some emotional grasp on our characters besides the one that can't talk and the one that just summarizes to you the story of the game. Doey should have had an emotional moment that almost ends up in him becoming evil until all the spirits possessing him take a breather and unite to get justice for the lost souls in the safe haven, because they all have a caring side to them. I have no clue why they suddenly just take it out on us as the player instead of, you know, the actual person that did this. All of those hands on his design can unite and hold onto each other as they find their purpose and goal, instead of the monster they randomly become, where 2 of them are visually holding back and 1 that's trying to reach for us. In all ways, this is a failure to make a twist villain, or even attempt one with a character like Doey, who had so much potential than what was given. Going into Chapter 5, we have no real emotional connections to make a final battle feel exhilarating and a predictable outcome that will most likely surface when it comes out in a year or so. If Mob Games is somehow watching this, I don't doubt you have talent on your team, but I feel there is too much of a formula to follow that squanders a lot of potential. All in all, I'm gonna buy Chapter 5 regardless if it's good or bad, because I want to finish the story, but I hope that they'll be able to learn from their mistakes and maybe even change it up and make it more fun to play and follow along, like how Chapter 3 was able to revolutionize things for the game. It's surprisingly been a while since I made something that was negative, but this video was not fully negative, which, you know, to be completely honest, is pretty nice. There are some good shows and movies that are out and are coming out that I hope to talk about soon, as we have the slump of not having any new content to watch finally ending. With that all said, thank you everybody for watching. I'm Enchanted. Bye.